So I'm ready whenever the mods are ready.
Hello, am
Hello,
I
Akash.
audible?
Yes, I'm. Yes, I can hear you.
Please start the session. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Atulesh Jha. Thank you for being here. I think people will join later on, and we should start the session.
Okay, then I'll just take the questions first from the TG, and also, if possible, you can just send a pin or a reminder in the main group to see if people may have missed. They can join. So that is there. Rest, I think I'll just begin with it. So let me just find the earliest post so that I can respond to the people who responded to the first post. There was one question Durkheim had placed. I cannot find it. That is what I'm looking for. Can you tag me there in the group?
I'm looking it up. So I'll tell you the question when I find it. Please move to next question. I think
Okay then.
it will take some time.
Okay, okay. No issues. No issues. That's perfectly fine then. So the first question that I so the first question is how did you? Okay, I'll start with the basics. Whatever I've understood regarding the process and how I've understood about it. I'm just starting the video. Am I clearly visible? Okay. So then today I'm going to discuss about GS answer writing, GS 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end, I can discuss approximately 5 minutes about the essays, what I did for essay. It's a very simple and easy to go process. It's not anything very complex. My marks are also very average. So that is there for essays. I'll discuss just in 5 minutes. And currently, to begin with, GS. GS has two components. One is content and preparation. The second component is answer writing. First component, we all know the books, we all know the material. Important part is note making. I've already stressed this in my optional video. You should make your own notes. Even when you are reading other notes or something, just simply add them to your own notes because it helps. It helps in retention, it helps in sentence construction, and it helps for you as an individual to understand better what you're studying. So that is why I prefer note making. We all know the books that are there for each of the GS 1, 2, 3, 4 papers. If someone wants to ask about a specific book, they can put it in the comment section. I'll respond. Now, the second aspect is that after you are done with these things, that is, you have developed your base knowledge, you know the answers. Second part is answer writing. That is a very important aspect of this examination because you have to present your answers for 20 questions in 3 hours. The examiner is also giving, from what I understand, approximately 30 to seconds, 30 seconds to read your own answer. That is how anyone evaluates an answer. So answer writing becomes important because you have to convey your message, and you as an individual are not present to explain your answer to anyone. So suppose I write an answer and Akash is reading it, so he knows me as a friend. He can revert back to me and ask me, "अच्छा ये sentence का क्या मतलब है या what you want to imply." But when I'm an anonymous roll number, I don't imply anything. I am what is there in the answer. If the examiner does not understand, he does not reward me for it. He moves ahead. If he misunderstands, he penalizes me for it and he moves ahead. That is the only relationship I have with the examiner who is checking my copy. There is no other relationship or individuality that exists. Even when you are doing test series, remember that the test series examiner for you is an individual whom you've paid. So he has a duty. Even he is very conscious of what he's checking in your copy. You might agree with the marking, disagree with the marking, but he has something in his mind that you can come for a feedback. But in UPSC, that is not the case. You cannot go around asking why you awarded me this marks, or you could have awarded me more. You, in fact, don't know what each question marks you were awarded. You only know the total. So now you have to prepare for this, keeping this in mind. Now, this all sounds very subjective because it is a subjective process, but the preparation has to be objective. Answer writing, you have to have some checklist that I am going to do this, this, and this in every answer as far as I possibly humanly can. Now, the first important thing when doing answer writing is to read the answer correctly, to read the question correctly. If you are making mistakes in understanding the question, in reading the question, then no one can save you. If you've read the question wrongly, then nothing can happen. Now, reading the question is also in many parts. Every question has some part. So, suppose there is a sentence and then there comes a question. So, that sentence cannot be left hanging. You have to take care that you address that sentence also. Maybe just an introduction, maybe just a couple of sentences, but you have to address that sentence and then you have to address the question that is asked. UPSC does not use its word lightly. If it has used a sentence on something, then it is either expecting you to do something to it or it is expecting you to acknowledge it. Also, at times it happens UPSC gives question in part. So you have to break your answer in parts so that it is clearly visible to the examiner when he's suppose your answer is broken down into a summary of skeleton, a summary or skeleton, even though we write very short answers, even if that is broken into a skeleton, it should be clearly visible that these points you have addressed in the question, and those were the addresses that an examiner has in mind when he's checking a question. So there is a very basic example. This is a question that came to my mind recently. Now listen, the question is, it's not framed properly, I'm just going ahead with it. So apart from petroleum, India imports a lot many things. Full stop. How can India control its rising current account deficit? Elaborate. This is a 15 marker. I have made the question. I don't know if it has come in the past in anywhere or anything. So now the first sentence is, apart from petroleum products, India imports a lot many goods or whatever I said. Now this is just a sentence. But this is not just a sentence that UP has said to make its question look very elaborate or beautiful. You have to address this. Now you have to write some very small section on what all things India imports. If you have the data, also break down the percentages. So India's suppose 19% of petroleum products, then comes edible oils, then comes gemstones and gold and electronic items. These things you have to write somewhere. You cannot ignore this sentence because UPS said apart from, so if you qualify it, it can increase your marks by 1. That is good enough. Now comes the question. The question was the highlighter was elaborate, and the question was, how can India control, yeah, what steps or measures it can take to control the rising current account deficit? Now you can give steps. In India, we are trying to grow palm oil so that we can reduce our dependence on edible. In India, we are doing moving away from petroleum sources of energy. We are moving to solar energy. Electrification is going on of railways so that when we start using non-renewable energy, we don't need petrol or diesel engines. There are many things that you can go ahead and write, but a lot of people tend to ignore the first part in answer writing. That is, you have to address each part. Even you have to try to read between the lines at times. It's not very obscure. It was very clear. UPSC has it in that sentence. So you try to address that sentence also only very minimally, but do try to address that. Maybe UPSC has in mind that this is a 15 marker. 3 marks is awarded to whoever answers the first sentence, and the rest 12 marks are awarded for whoever answers the question. So why leave, even if 1 marks you can get out of that 3 marks, why leave that? So this is something you need to keep in mind, that to read the question very carefully, break down the question into parts. When you are answering the question, Write the subparts of the question as you have seen in the question. Write the subparts of the answer as you have seen in the question. So if the question has three things, why and what, then you should exactly pick those words and lines from the question and answer. So suppose in my question the language was how India can control the current account, then your sub part should be how steps India can take to control the current account deficit. So when the examiner looks from the, even if he's skimming through the answer, he sees कि अच्छा ये सब part तो उसने address किया है, अब इसके नीचे 4.5 पॉइंट इसने लिखे. Don't use some other sentence or some very complex language. ग्रामर का प्रदर्शन नहीं है, इनफैक्ट उसका पिनलाइजेशन होता है, क्योंकि एग्जामिनर ऊपर ऊपर से कई बार आंसर पढ़ने लगते हैं लास्ट में, तो दे माइट मिस की व्हाट यू आर ट्राइंग टू से, व्हिच यू कुड हैव इजीली सेड इन वेरी सिंपल सेंटेंसेस एंड सिंपल फ्रेजेस व्हिच यू वुड हैव रेड. ये वाली बात ध्यान में रखनी है कि आंसर का जो ओवरव्यू है ना, वो ओवरव्यू देख के लगना चाहिए कि आंसर है, आंसर है, क्वेश्चन जो पूछा है उसी का आंसर है, कुछ दाएं बाएं नहीं है और कुछ मिसिंग नहीं है. इतनी बातें अगर लगातार एग्जामिनर को आपके हर आंसर में मिलती जाएंगी तो आपके एवरेज मार्क्स ऊपर होने लगेंगे. ये चीजें मेरे अपने अटेम्प्ट्स में मैंने चेंज किया है कि मैं आंसर की रीडेबिलिटी एनहेंस करता हूं कि कोई भी क्लास 12th का बच्चा उतनी समझ रखता है कि यूपीएससी के जीएस के आंसर्स पढ़ के वो समझ सके क्या चल रहा है, तो उसको कभी ये कंफ्यूजन नहीं पड़. आप जब आंसर लिखते हैं तो अपने पीयर ग्रुप्स में घुमाइए और देखिए कि क्वेश्चन के हर सेक्शन को आपने एड्रेस किया कि नहीं. इस बार के टॉपर्स की भी आप कॉपी उठाइए, मैंने देखा तो जो रैंक 1 है उनकी कॉपी अगर आप देखेंगे तो आप नोटिस करेंगे कि हर क्वेश्चन का ब्रेकडाउन बहुत अच्छा है उनका, उनके आंसर्स में क्वेश्चन का कोई भी पार्ट नहीं है जो कि छूटा हुआ है. ये होता है आंसर राइटिंग के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट. नॉलेज उतनी है, नॉलेज सबके पास लगभग उतनी रहती है. हाँ 19-20 का अंतर आता है, तो रैंक 1 से रैंक 100 का अंतर आएगा, उतना सब्जेक्टिविटी रहेगा 20 नंबर 30 नंबर का, लेकिन सिलेक्शन हो जाएगा. वो हो सकता है सर्विस कैडर ऊपर नीचे आए, लेकिन वो बाद में देखा जाएगा, पहले तो सिलेक्शन चाहिए. तो इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आंसर राइटिंग स्किल्स भी आप उतने ही अच्छे से डेवलप करें जितने की कंटेंट के लिए आप मेहनत कर रहे हैं. डोंट इग्नोर दैट आंसर राइटिंग एस्पेक्ट. दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर ऑल जीएस पेपर्स. 80 क्वेश्चन है, अगर आपने आंसर राइटिंग से आधे आधे मार्क्स का भी इंप्रूवमेंट और एवरेज किया, जो कि पॉसिबल है, 40 नंबर बढ़ गए तो बहुत ज्यादा होता है. इस बार 40 नंबर के अंदर में लोग आईएएस बन रहे हैं और बाहर जा रहे हैं सर्विस से. दैट इज द रेंज. So that is what you need to keep in mind when you are doing answer writing. Now, how to do answer writing? Initially, जब आप जीएस की प्रिपरेशन शुरू कर रहे हैं, कुछ समय पढ़ लीजिए, जो कुछ पढ़ा है उसके बाद रोज एक दो क्वेश्चन लगाना शुरू कीजिए. Okay, so I'll try to switch to English. Okay, apologies for sticking with Hindi. So when you start doing answer writing, try writing one or two answers after some time, let's say 15 days or 20 days of your studying of mains preparation, so that you know some basic knowledge, you address questions related to that chapters that you study. At least you should have a base and then you start writing answers. So that also take toppers copies of last year, you see their questions, don't look at the answers. In the beginning you look at the answers of other copies, you try to understand their process, their mental process, go through 3 or 4 copies, note down points, how they are writing examples, when they are making diagrams, when they are making flow charts, timelines. These things you have to keep in mind. These things add value to your answers. Map making, in geography you can always try map making. There was this question this time, I believe, that in India mountainous regions have there was a difference asked in the Western Ghats and Himalayas, how landslides or avalanches occur. I cannot recall the exact question. I made a map of India and I showed Himalayan region where landslides and all occur and Western Ghats region. The answer I wrote, but I did make a map. It was not explicitly required, but I did because it was a geography question and everything. So try making one map and do it very speedily. Make it in 30 seconds or 40 seconds. Practice that. It should not look very bad. That is the aim. It should, I mean, even a class 6 a student should be able to say, okay, this is India, this is Himalaya, this is Western Ghat. That is the only aim. That is the only identifier that should be there. So this is one exercise. When you're doing answer writing, take up proper copies, go through them, make a list. Every time I ask you to write, so in a note, you write down what all these toppers are doing, something that you notice. You will notice. There is, unless and until you are totally blind to your faults, you won't get overconfident in this examination. That should not happen anywhere. Then you start writing one or two answers. Now, how you start writing? You take up other topper copies. From that topper only, a topper has 8 to 10 copies usually. You simply see the question and then you write the answer on your own, whatever knowledge you have. Now you try to match the answer to the answer that the topper has written. Now, in that, what you're doing is first you're saying, are you able to address those parts of the question only which the topper has addressed, or are you addressing less? If you are addressing more, then if time permits, good. If time does not permit, then that is also something you need to keep in mind. Are you able to address all the parts that the topper found in the question and he or she addressed? Well and good. Now, second, you can check for content. Content is something you will develop over time with your studies. But answer writing is something that you need to go ahead with and work upon, because once you learn wrong content, you can easily learn a better content in next attempt. But if you develop a wrong answer writing habit, then it takes at least 2 to 3 attempts to rectify it. And that is a serious problem a lot of us have. We do not begin with answer writing as a serious element. Later, it hinders us in getting selection. We always get interview or mains call, and then we miss by 20 marks, 30 marks. That happens 2 or 3 times. So that is why answer writing is also an important aspect, equally important as content. Then in a GS, I'll take up questions and then give very specific answers. This is the general outlook of GS studies, as I understood. I did not focus a lot on content because there is a lot of book list and everything from toppers blogs and everything. They are all equally good. Anyone who's got any rank in top 200, always check the marks of that specific paper when you are taking reference to a topper. So in my case, there are a lot of people who've got better marks in ethics. Follow them, not me. In other papers, I've got very decent marks, so you can follow them. So that is there. Then in a book list, you have a very common book list. Don't hoard books from second reading or third reading. Start writing your own notes. It helps. It reduces the burden of books also. You can read from your own notes itself. It is better for everything, as I've said earlier. Then I'm coming directly to the essay part. Rest I can take your questions and answer it. Now in essay, I have got 123. It is like average or slightly above average this time because the essay scores were not very good, I've heard, or so I've heard. I've not done any research or anything. I barely do any research on trends and everything. So what is that in essay I did? In philosophical essays, you can do two things. You can attempt the baser instincts of the essay, or you can philosophize the essay in a very high format, hi-fi language and everything. I avoided that because that is risk prone. I know people who have got 140 in one attempt and then 90s in another attempt because of this approach. So this is highly rewarding, but at times it can penalize you. I was not in a mood to risk. My method would, I was aware it would give me in the range of 125 something this time. So I was okay with that. Now that is your personal suit. If you're happy with 125 range, go ahead with it. Whenever you see a philosophical essay, first you take a point that you know. So an essay, the topic, you should be easily able to comprehend what the topic is, and you should have some idea in your mind, okay, I can write on this. Self-confidence is most important when you are taking up an essay. So in the introduction, I used to explain the essay and maybe explore some dimensions very sketchily, some political dimensions, some economic dimensions, something or the other. Very sketchily, I would do that. And then when you start with the body of the essay, you start writing, you break down the essay into things that are happening around us or things that you've read in GS. So you can take up some concept or some example from world history and try to fit that in the essay. You can take up something that is happening around in economics, in Indian history, in Indian politics, that you can try to fit in that framework. That is how I broke down my essay. So there was one question, one essay topic, I think, regarding my reflection of you is a reflection of me or something. I cannot recall the exact essay topic, but I think this was the crux of it. A lot of sociological socio students I know gave a lot of theories based on sociology and started writing about the thinkers and everything also in that. I would usually avoid it because I've heard that the examiner is usually looking for a generalist essay, So he penalizes those. I know a couple, one got a fairly decent mark, one got a bad mark. So maybe he got bad marks because he went theoretical. I don't know, maybe they're decent. So it is subjective, but avoid it. He is looking for a generalist essay. Usually you can look for essays that are there in Yojana magazine. So whenever you read, I did not read Yojana for GS and anything perspective because it was very hectic. So if you read the Yojana magazine, you will see it's a very simple and lucid way which they write. That is what I would advise anyone to prepare for essay writing. The Hindu is usually very convoluted, and the process of writing an essay, if you read from the Hindu, becomes very muddled at times. So you can just read a few articles from Yojana, and you can see that that is how an essay should be written. It's very well written. Usually there are secretaries or anything who have written Yojana magazine. Sorry, I'm not slightly feeling well, so this is that. So that is how I attempted my essay. You break down the essay in everyday things. So the topic that I was explaining was my reflection of you. So I slightly philosophized it in the beginning that as humans we are um, recursive beings. We think, we do. So we are obviously influenced by what the other person is thinking, and we also shape influences on other persons. This all I wrote slightly in the beginning, and then when I was writing, I took up the cause of social media because it is very well expected that social media is doing this thing. So how we are portrayed on online platforms, how we see others on online platforms, or how celebrities behave, brand influencers behave was one aspect. Then there was another aspect of international relations, that how we India was, which was perceived during the early 1950s as a very young, very poor country, was able to establish a stature because of movements like NAM and everything, so that we could change our perception. That is how we try to look around globally. Also, I gave some examples that earlier Pakistan was very close to USA, now it is close to China. So it's not exactly how only, but now in the US, Pakistan is viewed with suspicion. At one time, they were great friends. So these things I wrote, but never lose touch of the topic. The topic is primacy. If you start going on tangents, very weird or very far off from the topic, you will be penalized. So every time you write, the topic should be in your mind, and you should not break the topic and address it. Topic should not be broken. ये टॉपिक को आधा पार्ट बना लिया फिर आधा इधर. It is not GS answer writing. Topic should be whole. The whole sentence is one topic, and that should be addressed throughout the essay. And in conclusion, you can sum it up and tie it up whatever you've given. You can recall also something from the earlier parts or something, and then tie it up. Your language should be very easy flowing and easy to read, like NCRT books. I'm a great fan of NCRT and IGNU books because anyone from any board who has a basic smattering of English can understand those books. That is how language should be actually written, not how Supreme Court judgments are that समझने में भी 5 दिन लग रहा है कि क्या चल रहा है. So that is the purpose of language. It should be easily able to convey to you what is there. Now this is for GS, this is for essay. Now I'm going to take up questions that I find in the group. This is what my understanding of the process is. So I'm not, I think if Akash has found, he can put it down. What Durkheem had asked. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I could not find it.
Okay, okay, then no issues. I'm sorry I kept delaying this because I was not unwell. I was down with fever. So sorry, Durkheem, maybe he can drop me a message later. The first question is, how did you integrate the current affairs in paper one? Is it GS paper one or socio paper one? Okay, so if you're asking for socio, you can go and check the other video on this channel itself. This decipher group I had done. I think it was pretty extensive. I answered a lot of questions. So if you're asking for GS, then the questions are there for current affairs. I prepare my current affairs on a daily basis nearly. I daily go through the newspapers, or on Forum IAS blog, there is one 9 p.m. I used to do that also so that I don't miss. I made short notes from them, which I felt was relevant for the examination. That is how I did current affairs. Then at the end, I did those magazines, Mains 365, PT 365, and any other magazine that I could do recall. I also did magazines from Only IAS. In socio current affairs, I did what I felt was from newspapers and everything. I did not subscribe or anything. In sociology, usually even the groups decipher, you will find the current things that are being shared. but take them all with a pinch of salt. You don't need to focus a lot and make your answer about current affairs in sociology. They are usually very static people who are checking the paper in sociology. In GS, however, you need to keep that in mind, that that the very captured perception of current affairs is something that you should be including in your answer. So, what is the common perception of a current affair happening? And the very balanced notion should be given, not high on political bickering or not a very conspiracy theory type thing should be written in answer. So, if the question is coming in sociology IR regarding Russia and China, you cannot write points that secretly China is also supporting Russian invasion of Ukraine, because that is not there anywhere. Even keep in mind when you are writing that you are writing like a bureaucrat who is speaking at the UN. You cannot say things that are not there explicitly. If S. Jaishankar ji has said this, then you can say it. Otherwise, you cannot say such things. That is how you use current affairs. So I'm from engineering background. I'm giving my first attempt in 23. What are the consequences to face over choosing sociology as an optional as it is completely new? Uh, you can check my other video. I think that I've, and in the group also you can ask. There are people like Akash who can guide you better. There are no consequences as such if you write sociology in English. If you're writing in Hindi, then maybe there are. I don't know why, but there are no consequences. Mistakes not to commit in mains examination preparation to ace it in an attempt, whether related to answer writing or notes making. Mistakes not to commit to ace it in an attempt. एक attempt में यार मेरा नहीं हुआ, but I'll try to answer what mistakes you should not do. How many attempts it takes, I don't know. So don't ignore the syllabus and don't ignore the answer writing. Both things demand equal respect. When I say don't ignore the syllabus, a lot of people do haphazard reading of some parts at the end because time management is an issue. And in examination, they write haphazard answers because, again, time management in the paper is an issue. So have sufficient mocks. Devise a strategy if you need to. कि पहले 20 marker attend करना है, or first I should go for 10 marker or 20 marker. What strategy? How much time I should take? Should I draw a lot of diagrams so that they save time? Or making diagrams is taking up a lot of time. These things you have to decide in your mocks. When you're doing mocks, do them very seriously. Sorry. And use them as a platform to test all the strategies that you can apply in the main exam. Don't procrastinate. Obviously, that is one thing you should not mistake. We usually commit. We take a easy approach. Prepare your mains and prelims throughout thoroughly before you are attending this exam. I would not suggest anyone to prepare any portion of mains after the prelims. It should only be kept for revision and answer writing practice. That is what I would suggest. Usually, a lot of people miss out on their good attempt because of these things. They are not fully prepared for the process. So, when you are giving the prelims, keep in mind that you should be 100% prepared for your mains also. One thing, notes making. Note making, now it is an individual process. I have explained in my other video also how I would make notes, and I've also shared a couple of notes, I think, on the group. So, how you know how you are making notes is something, it is personal to you, but you should make notes that you can easily quickly read, and quickly read and easily grasp. That is how notes should be made. It should also not leave out important points. It should also stimulate your brain to recall other points. That is how I used to think of my notes. My notes are not very um, good for someone else to read because they're something that stimulates me to understand, okay, this is what I had to do. So that is something how you go around in notes making. Then there is question, sir, did you decide any specific dimensions of framework while answering quotes based questions, anything? Or consider it an open-ended? In my case, I took them as an open-ended question. I did not have a framework, but what I wrote is, in the beginning, if possible, I tried to give some background to the quote, thinking what that individual, because the individual is also mentioned. Usually it's Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, they are known persons. So how they used that quote, I used to give in 2 or 3 lines, and then I used to give pros, slightly cons, and then conclude on a positive note. But my marks in ethics is not something That is, and now I don't know whether I got less in case studies or in theory section, but it's 99. So I don't know how successful I was, but that is what I did in quote based questions. Role of test series in mains preparation, how and when to join. You do answer writing practice on a daily basis after some time, but in test series I only joined after doing my pre. It is important because it lets you test the waters along with other candidates. You have some fair game idea where you stand. You don't have to be objectively topping the test series or so to say, but you have to score decent marks. You discuss with your mentors whichever test series you are taking after some time, what improvements I can make, what is expected. If you are not getting good marks, why you are not getting good marks. Also see model answers, but model answers don't give you the framework of the answer. They only give you the content for the answer. So it helps you prepare. So in my opinion, it is important to take test series. How to improve the score from 340s to 400, especially for GS1 and GS4. Okay, so how to improve? Uh, the thing is that there can be again I've clearly demarcated that there are two territories in answer GS answers. One is content, one is answer writing. So now you have to evaluate why you are in 340s. Is it because of content or is it because of answer structure? If you feel you have good content and your content is what is usually shared in the model answers or what topper copies I've also written, then it is structuring. See at the structuring that toppers are doing and write that structure. Try to make that structure very explicit in your answers. Now you are asking for specific points for GS1 and GS4. GS4, I don't have a lot of specific points. My usual preparation mechanism was I tried to use the keywords that are given in the syllabus and also keywords that are there in notes of Lukman and Forum IES Red Book. Those are the two books I used to make my own notes. Forum IES Red Book and series notes. So that is for GS4. So in GS4, I used to write my answers, various dimensions, and use keywords, a lot of keywords. Uh, in GS4, it's not easy to recall all those keywords. Make a list of them, go through them every few days. You can recall them better. In GS1, try doing map making, try doing flow charts, try doing diagrams in geography. Try to break down the question and address each part and make the proper structure. That is usually the reason why people are stuck. In history, you can give examples. In society question also you can give examples. In polity and all also you can give examples, committees reports, constitutional articles. These things you should not miss when you are writing. These are value addition. Data in geography also you can give data. In GS3 a lot of data you can give in a lot of questions. They add value to your answer and perspective. The examiner, it reinforces on the examiner कि मुझे ये पता था. So he's like, okay, it's and it should be relevant to the question. Don't give random data or random things. Also, if it is popular data that is there in news, TOI, and the likes, then examiner also easily accepts it because he also must have seen or read that data very recently. Na? So that is something you can do. Then, if PYQ is followed, there is pattern of asking questions in optional paper one. Please discuss. Sociology, this is asking. See, I've said somewhere around here only. I think I don't go for pattern and trends. I believe in holistic preparation. Now that is a personal choice. A lot of toppers I know do this trend and pattern thing, and they are successful also. So there is no two doubts about it. But I never did this. मुझे लगता है कि you should prepare wholeheartedly each part. Even if world history questions are not coming, you should prepare them. You should prepare world history. There is a 1.5 year cycle. 1.5 साल cycle है ये पूरा. उसको पूरा complete कीजिए एक बार में. That is how I would advise. Then there is how to handle case studies in GS4. Read case studies very carefully. Identify the limitations and what is expected. Then see what question is saying and address each question. In question, you can also use the theories that you've learned in ethics. You can mention that theory ki I can do this because this theory says this or something. I can do utilitarian approach or something like that, and then give the answer. Give the answer complete. Answer should be practical and pragmatic. When I say practical and pragmatic, I do not mean the real world practical and pragmatic कि मेरा सीनियर है करप्ट है तो मैं उसको कोई कंप्लेन नहीं करूंगा क्योंकि मेरी सीनियरिटी को खराब कर सकता है. ये वाला pragmatic practical वाला नहीं. That is wrong. what is constitutionally and within your power. So suppose you are the SP. The question says you are the SP of a district, and a gang is trying to induce school children to get into drugs. Now, what can you do? So now you cannot give a suppose a answer like I will open a new school in a different place because you are the SP. You don't have those powers. So these are common mistakes a lot of people commit in case studies. You cannot say I will write to the chief secretary. These are not practical solutions. What is in your power, that you try, and it is the small things that matter, small practical things. You will go and address the school children. You will put a patrol outside the school so that no such miscreants roam around the school. Those individuals who are doing this as an organized crime, you will penalize them. You won't penalize the individuals as such who are victims. So these things are what you can write in that answer. And this is also practical, and that is how you should actually solve the problem if you want to solve it. How to handle case studies, watch Lukman Ansari videos. Actually, that is a good solution. There is no doubt it's a very good how they have addressed ethics. Now there is a discussion on watching videos on Telegram. I won't have anything to say about it. Okay, then again, Karthik has said, what are the hurdles I must be aware of choosing sociology? Okay. Uh, Guys, this session I was thinking of taking up for GS, but the only one hurdle I found in sociology was people usually tend to think they understand sociology very easily. Everyone thinks he's a sociologist and a philosopher. That is not the case. Even a lot of early sociologists said that sociology is as specific as science. Maybe not, that is a debate, but we should be able to debate that very articulately in sociological terms with sociological thinkers, not like a layman standing at a shop. That is the problem with sociology. A lot of us, we will, after reading NCRT, we will know sociology. That is not sociology is all about. Okay, you should be very strictly confined to sociological terms, sociological explanations, and definitions that you can get with answer writing and content making. Suggest a preferable coaching institute for sociology. Yeah, I did not find a lot of coaching institutes preferable, to be honest. I actually find that the people who are doing a good job online in the YT videos and all for doubt resolution are doing a better job than any established coaching. In my case, I did go for coaching, but I did not find it helpful. Then I started self preparing for sociology, and then I watched a lot of videos. I also watched Decipher videos. I also watched other institute videos that are famous online. You must have known them. So I usually did that only. Whenever I found myself stuck, but I was able to understand most of the concepts reading on my own in IGNU language and everything. So if you are not able to understand, then join coaching. Join any famous coaching, but don't join any coaching because a lot of people are praising it or anything. Usually join some someone who is I think Praveen Kishore Upendra sir is something that you can go. You can also join upcoming coachings. They're also good. Most coachings are good, but what you need to do is you need to follow through on your own. Also, at times, even in coachings, you won't be able to grasp concept. Then you have to go to YouTube and understand them on your own only. So now there is again another question on optional research and optional social and
We have
anthropology.
hello.
Hmm.
We have some GS related questions in chat box, so we
Acha,
can.
okay. I totally forgot about the chat box over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there are a few. Yeah, thank you. Okay, see, for others, you can discuss optional research in the Telegram group itself. I've not done a lot of research from other optionals, so I'm not very good at this sort of. I always had Swishu in my mind once when I took up in my second attempt, so I stuck with it. So I'm writing mains 2022, but I'm finding it hard to manage time for managing answer writing and content. How to manage both? You are writing mains in 22, and you are not done with your content. You should have already been done with your content, okay? But now since you finding issues, then you break down your answer writing. However, don't let it go standard, नहीं तो वहाँ 3 घंटे में पता चला you are racing against time. So give half an hour or 1 hour to answer writing in the evening daily, and for the other time do content. Prepare your notes or whatever you feel you are going to do for your content. But obviously it's going to be hard because now is not the time when you should have been doing content. But there are people who have done content after prelims and they're qualified. There is no two ways about it. It cannot be done. But obviously it is difficult and hard, and you have to focus on how to manage it. Increase your time, increase your concentration, what you do during time, and block out any noise that is coming from outside that is distracting you, if there is any. Do that. You have to give 8 to 10 hours quality time. जिंदगी में और करने को है क्या अगले 3 महीने, यही करो. So sometime I lack in content and sometime I lack in good writing. So is it necessary to have good writing? It's not necessary to have good writing. It's necessary to have understandable writing. Your answer should be understandable to the examiner, to anyone, to any person who has class 10 knowledge and above, decent class 10 knowledge. You should not be stupid. So if any individual who is class 10 language and above, he should be able to read your answer and to understand what you are writing. That is the only requirement. Content, it should be there. It should not be very hi-fi content, but content that is decent enough, that is there in every standard book or every standard newspaper discussion that you are saying. If it is something on current affairs, that you can fill 2 to 3 pages of your GS answers. How you tackle those questions where you have less content? See, if I have less content, then I see something from the static that is very relevant, I can add in the answer. So if there is something from the static or current affairs that is very relevant to that, I can add answer. If I have less content, then I write less answer. I don't write a long answer with less content, because examiner should not feel that you are trying to bluff or that you are trying to move around the answer. The answer should be what is exactly asked in the question and what you know about it. It should not be an answer that you think you can write anything about it. That is not. So to what should we cover the peripheral topics, governance, NGO, infra? Is Vision VAM good? I felt Vision VAM is good for such topics because I did not go for very deep in these things. Deep जा भी नहीं सकते क्योंकि हमारा जो question आता है, if you see the PYQs, they may sound deep, but if you start writing for 2 or 3 pages, you touch peripheral topics with conviction. They should not be touched peripherally. They are peripheral, but the answer should be conviction. For NGO, you should know what NGO does, how it is helping in development, and what if they are not helping in development, what reports there are, like CBI, IB reports, and everything on NGOs. These things also you should have good examples, data. That is how you cover such topics. That is what I did. Second, how different should conclusions and introductions be to how different from each other? Obviously, they should be very different. Introduction is entirely a different perspective. If it is some concept that is asked in the question, that you can introduce your answer by defining the concept or by giving a proper definition, in, especially in GS4 or something. In conclusion, you should either reach a conclusion if the question is demanding, or you can give a way forward if the question asks, or you can simply sum some things up if the question looks into that direction. So that is how the conclusion should be. That is, in conclusion and introduction in each in themselves should be different, but don't try to make it very creative or different from very others. That is not how you fetch a lot of extra marks. Extra marks, from what I felt in UPSC, is given to those who stick to the basics, who don't make any mistake in the basics. Then you start gathering good marks in each answer, and that is what makes extra marks. Did you know the surprise topic, CG? Surprise topic, see, I recalled GDP revision because I had read about it for at least 2 years in my preparation. Now, if you take up any static material like Shriram, IS, and everything, I think GDP revision is covered in them. So you cannot miss the static portion. Now GDP revision has become static. So why is that a surprise? It is there, I think, in Vivek Singh book also. It is there, I think, in Ramesh Singh also. I think it is there in every UPSC economics book. So you should know the GDP revision topics. GST, GDP, these things are something that you should always know. No, I was aware GDP revision. I was what I was not clearly aware is also in science and tech, a lot of people were worried about blue light and everything, blue LED. So don't get haphazard. If you are reading news around, you are aware of what blue LED is and what importance it has. Also, whenever you see, go for a paper now, do one thing. For the past 7 8 years, see what Nobel prizes have been given out. What are the uses? That is something you should do. And any new thing that is in news, what is the common use? A layman which can understand, some YouTube video. Like there earlier, there was one question on Bose-Einstein condensed state. Obviously, they are not expecting you to write a thesis for a PhD. Something basic that is in every common YouTube video you can find. So that is how I attempted the GS3. Stick to the basics, stick to the core. There was a question on S400. Now, who would expect such questions? But there was, if you take up any India Today or God Forsaken newspaper, you will see that they have a visual. वहाँ पे S400 खड़ा कर देंगे, उसके बारे में 5 पॉइंट साइड में लिख देंगे. It has a range of 400 kilometers. It is mobile. It is easily carryable. It can multi-barrel entry. These things. So these were what I wrote in the answers. This is what also the examiner is expecting. He's not expecting some very high-fi military war strategy. You are not a Sun Tzu writing something. Okay. Then there is, sir, kindly tell how to prepare SNT and environment from basics to GS level. In environment, I prepared from Shankar, and then I prepared from CA material. Okay, nothing apart from that I did in environment. I think Shankar is very extensive. Even if a lot of questions are not being answered, then you cannot do much about it because a lot of people are facing this point. So that is something you in SNT and environment both. The syllabus is important. In SCT, a lot of people ignore the Indian scientist part. Research it from Wikipedia or anything, the famous Indian scientist, and write very small paragraphs in it in your notes. In SNT also, I use current affairs apart from the static portion. You should be aware of static like biotechnology uses and these things. These are static portions. Now, there is a very good book from TMH, I think, on SNT. Do that book. You can find PDF also, I think, on Telegram. Do that book thoroughly. It makes a good. It is actually expansive, but you have to do if you want to cover it holistically. Then you do SNT, then environment and ecology. That is also in environment and ecology. We see a lot of articles and all coming in Indian Express and everything regarding agriculture and these things. Or a lot of news was there on zero budget natural farming and these things. So if they come in the future in questions, they are not bouncers or surprise. They are being discussed by our finance minister, prime minister, and everything. And good articles are coming in newspapers. So you should have make notes of those topics. Then there is, sir, kindly that how to prepare SNT. Okay, this is what I did. Sir, usually how much time it takes to make notes of GS? Uh, how much time? Okay, see, it does take time. It takes more time than reading, obviously. But I don't know how much time it will take. But obviously, if you're giving 23 attempt, I would suggest everyone to try to start making notes. Once you start making notes, also your speed picks up. Okay, like what happens in newspaper reading. When you begin with newspaper reading, you give 2 to 3 hours every day to newspaper reading. Then later you start understanding what is important and what news should be read from what perspective. You start reducing your time to 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes, something like that. So this also happens in note making. Initially, it might take more time. Gradually, you can reduce your time in note making. Also, notes at times you can make in two parts: one draft notes, and then second fill that up with proper notes. So that is, you have to work to understand what is happening. There is no one size fits all, one sure shot answer to the preparation for UPSC. That is the thing with UPSC. It is not a very clear cut exam. It is different from other exams in these sense. Any such preparation is different from the other preparations. It's not like IIM or IIT preparation where you specifically know कि ये chapter इतने समय में हो सकता है. Because you are an individual, तुम्हारा चीज अलग है. Your process of making notes might not be what I like. So that is different. Maybe I can make Shishya notes in 3 4 weeks. You take 2 months, but you give those 2 months wholeheartedly. You will get more marks than me. So why to try to save time for that? Okay. In GS4, is answer writing more important than preparing basic contents, definition plus two examples, or should we do more digging into the syllabus? Don't do more digging into the syllabus, but definitely prepare very. The basic content should be very strong. It should be basic. It should not be dug deeper. So when you are asking for emotional quotient, you should know what Goldman said about emotional quotient, but don't read Goldman's book. Okay, that is digging too deep. You only read what EQ, what are the different dimensions of EQ which Goldman said. Write that in answer writing. Sorry, and answer writing is always important after you have gained your knowledge, because unless and until you write good answer, you write in good structured answer, you won't get good marks. You'll always keep getting average marks. Hello, sir. Please talk a little about how people who are doing job can crack this exam. See, I personally did not take a job, but if you are doing a job and you feel it is important for your economic well-being, continue with your job because it provides you mental peace. I've seen a lot of people who left job, but they are not economically secure. Then it becomes an issue, and they are not able to qualify the exam because they are very tensed about it. While doing job, you need to increase your commitment level. Now I don't know what job you are doing, but if your job does not provide you a lot of time, then give 2 to 3 hours per day. Prepare for them 2 years and then give that up. Don't be in a hurry. See, you are making some compromise on your study time, then prepare for 2 years. If you can give 3 hours per day, but you have to sacrifice on your social life, family life slightly. You cannot go attending weddings for a week or anything like that. On Sundays, you study for 6 hours, take some rest also. But you'll be very hectic, but you have to show this dedication along with your job. If you have a job, then you prepare for 3 hours per day and prepare for 2 years. Once you are done with your entire preparation, then you give your attempt. I would not suggest anyone to leave your job or anything because it is a very dicey subject. There is no guarantee. So if you are happy with your job, try continuing with it and prepare along with it. If you can commit yourself to the process in that, because commitment is important. If you're not able to commit 2 or 3 hours with your job, then even if you leave job, you won't be able to commit 8 hours. Commitment is something that you can check for a person in a month. That is what you have to individually check. इन शुरुआत में इंटरेस्ट बहुत आता है कि ये देंगे लेकिन धीरे धीरे ओवर टाइम कमिटमेंट इश्यूज आएंगे तो दैट इज व्हाट यू नीड टू मेंटेन. Please share your economics and geography sources. Ethics sources, okay. Ethics, there are only two sources. Lukman IES notes, and I saw the video lectures and made notes. Second, there was Forum IES Red Book. I did from that also my notes. There is please share your economics and geography sources. So in economics and geography sources, what I did was in economics, I did not have any specific source. I did not do Ramesh Singh or Munal or anyone. Let me tell you why. However, read the yellow book from Sriram IAS. That is my only source. Beyond that, personally, I feel I understand economics very easily. So I used to make notes from the newspapers. Whatever happenings were happening in newspaper, I used to make my own notes. So apart from Sriram, I did not have any other economic sources. No. Geography only. My sources in geography were NCRTs, GC Leong selectively for physical, and then I used to read a lot from PMF IES because PMF IES has very good explanations and everything, so you can read from them online only. I did not take any class. Then in mapping, read maps, learn how to understand maps, give some time. You will gradually start getting a hang of the things. थोड़ा अंदाजा लगने लगता है कि कौन सी चीज कहाँ पे होगी. But over time that develops. You cannot expect it in a week or two. So go through maps very clumsily over some time. You can go through YouTube videos of maps. That is also something because it helps you retain things very easily. Like you hear songs and recall them very easily. That is also one thing to do with mapping and geography sources. And last question is good for someone who's beginner and working professional as well. Vision IS online foundation course. If you're not able to grasp GS, then you can go for coaching. That is good enough. If you are able to grasp GS on your own and maintain discipline, see, coaching importance kya hai? Coachings give you discipline. They give you a timetable. They expect a syllabus to be finished on time, and they expect something. Now with the online course, this thing is slightly changing because coachings expect us to do it on our own. Be honest to the timetable and everything, and most of us are not honest. देखो commitment बहुत बड़ा issue है exam. So if you are able to commit to the process, continue, go ahead with it. There is no issue. Okay, but you have to devise a timetable which suits your. Don't be over ambitious कि मैं ऑफिस से 8 बजे आऊंगा 5:30 बजे पढ़ने बैठ सॉरी 5 बजे शाम को आऊंगा 5:30 बजे पढ़ने बैठ जाऊंगा. नहीं होगा. एक महीने बाद you will be feeling fatigued and you will give up the process. So make something that is rationally possible for it and then stick to it. If you are able to stick to it, तो 2 साल तैयारी करके फिर दो. There is no harm. देखो ये एग्जाम ऐसा है ना कि 1 साल में निकले चाहे 3 साल में निकलने के बाद कोई नहीं पूछता है ये कितना समय क्यों लगा ये वो. Unless until that is your friend who knows you, they have every right to ask you all sorts of questions. Then there is sir, how to use toppers notes in effective way for content. be very cautious when you're reading toppers notes. Usually when we are reading toppers notes, we find some very obscure point or something and we start wondering from which source he must have read it. Don't do that, okay? Because most of the time you will also know something obscure in yourself which could have written at the end. Maybe even the toppers note, that obscure point did not score him any points in the examination, because it is the firm basics content that will fetch you marks. That is the only thing that fetch anyone's marks. So how you can use toppers notes in effective way is, first you do your own reading, then you make your own notes, then you see toppers notes and compare them to your notes, and if you find something worthwhile, add those notes to your own. That is what my suggestion is, toppers notes. That is all I think today. When to start answer writing for 23 mains? You can start when you feel you have had a basic idea of the content. So when you have some basic content for, let us say, modern Indian history, you have finished modern Indian history, now you're moving on to, let us say, ancient India or art and culture. So you start some one or two answer writing for modern Indian history. You start seeing copies of toppers, how they have written, and then you write. So this is something that you can do. That is what I would advise to start answer writing. Akash, ma'am, if I have missed anything or any point that I should have discussed, or any point you would like me to develop upon, I think I've checked all the chat and Telegram questions.
Hello.
Ah,
It was a very good session, and you had fever. You were not well, so taking a session in such situation, I think, deserves lot of appreciation, and all the people should be thankful to Atulesh sir for giving his time. And if you have any other doubt, you can give text us on Telegram, and you can also post your questions in our groups in Decipher, and we'll reply whenever we have time. And so I think we should end the session. We have addressed. I think we have touched most aspects
yes, I think.
of GS preparation. No. So,
Okay.
ma'am, are you there? I think ma'am is not there. So everyone, please
Okay.
leave the video, and so it will terminate on its own.
Okay. I'm leaving the session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope I
Good
was able
night.
to
Good
address your
night.
questions.
Get well soon. I wish you good health.
Thank you.